Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're back. We're back. Team No Excuses presents the Ray Lewis Show. Listen, life is totally up to you on what you do with it. The opportunity that life offers every day, no matter the circumstances. Sometimes the imagination has to go way beyond your circumstances. And I think this next guest that I'm bringing up today is like, his imagination took him places that, wow, I think it's available to all of us. But it's who he is, it's what he's created, and his vision to continue to help people. He's a good friend of mine. We haven't connected in a while. We've connected by phone, but I need to see his face in person. The man himself, can't wait for him to tell you who he is and explain you what he's done. The great Jeff Hoffman. How are you, my friend? Great to see you.
Thank you, Ray. I really appreciate it. I wish I had an intro dance, but I'm just not there yet. I am really thrilled to be here with you. And you know what? You are so right that every morning you wake up is a brand new opportunity, no matter what happened to you yesterday or the whole rest of your life before that, or what mistakes you made. Anything, every morning you get a fresh chance to start over.
Yeah, Jeff, listen, man, I would be remiss if I did not do this, right? I love the story of Priceline. I love how you got started. And so if you can introduce the people and tell them a little bit about yourself and what makes Jeff Hoffman, Jeff Hoffman.
Yeah, sure. So I'll do that, but because I grew up with a single mom, 4 kids, and, no money. My mom was always working 2 or 3 jobs. And Ray, I'm an entrepreneur now, but I never used that word. The word I always used my whole life was I'm a problem solver. And one of the problems, especially back then, I played every sport, but in high school, football was my sport. And when it was time for new cleats, let's say, I didn't want to bother my mom. She had enough on her raising 4 kids and working 3 jobs. And I found out later, doing all that just to keep us near a school district that was better for us. I would have never made her do that if I had known that. And so even as a kid, I would just go down the street, say, knock on doors. Can I mow your lawn? Can I clean your garage? Can I carry your trash? Is there something I could do you would pay me for? And I'll buy my own shoes. And as a kid, I got that feeling of when you want something and you work for something and you get it, that's a pretty good way to live.
Yeah.
And suddenly you start realizing my dreams get bigger. And so I'll tell you one real quick. I wanted out of my little town. Mm-hmm. Nobody around me had dreams, Ray. They didn't want to do anything. And I'm not judging people. That's not my place. But I had this crazy dream that I needed to go see the world. And it came in 6th grade, reading a book. And I picked up we had to pick a book and do a book report. I picked one by Mark Twain. And Mark Twain wrote in the front of this book, he wrote, "Travel is the fatal enemy of prejudice."
Wow.
And I was up all night, man. I was in my room like he wrote this to me, even though he's dead. Somehow he wrote in my book, and he was talking to me, not everybody else. I was sure. And I sat up all night and I figured it out. What I was being told was the only way for me to become the man I want to be someday is I got to get out and I got to see the world. I got to not judge people till I broke bread with them. And so I got this crazy dream. I was going to break bread in the homes of 50 families and 50 cultures in 50 countries before I died. I told everybody that, and all they did was laugh at me. Like, Jeff, man, go get a job. You need to stop with the stupid dreams. No one's going to pay you to fly around the world and eat dinner in people's homes and meet families. And I said, there's no job like that. I was like, you're right, there is no job like that, so I'll just make it. And I think you and I have talked about this a lot. That's probably the most important message. It certainly is of who I am, because I wanted something and I went out and created it. So very quickly, I'm a longtime serial entrepreneur. I've been building companies my whole life. Our biggest success was Priceline.com, Booking.com. A lot of people know it as. But I guess you should be less surprised if, for people listening, if my goal was to go see the world, then what a surprise that I wanted to help start travel companies so that I could live my dream and pay my bills at the same time. And that's kind of the root of my story. Dream big, work hard, and go out in the world and create value.
The greatest education in life is travel, right? It teaches you
absolutely
Absolutely everything. What does it mean to reinvent yourself?
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely great question, because a lot of times people put you in categories. Ray Lewis, he's a football player. No, Ray Lewis is a guy that excelled at football. The same characteristics that made him excel at football will allow him to be excellent at other things. You know what they said to me? Jeff, you're a software engineer. That was my degree. Mm-hmm. And then later I started, as you know, Ray, a music company, a film and television company. And people were like, what are you doing, man? You're a software engineer. And I was like, no, I'm not an engineer. I'm a guy who learned engineering, just like you learned how to play football. Yeah. But people that are good learners, the important thing is to be a lifelong learner and to know that every day is a new learning opportunity, and you never know enough. And you can learn from everybody. You and I have been learning from each other, from very different life paths, but so many things we share in common that we learn from each other every time we're together, long as you're open to that. And so when I decided I wanted to get into music and entertainment, and I started the music company, everybody said, you don't know anything about music. It's just like someone telling you, Ray, what are you doing in business? You're a football player. And I said, no, I'm going to study this the way I studied everything, the way you used to study quarterbacks and twitches and backfield motions that let you know what play was going on. I was studying business and industries and looking for the same twitch. Mine's just a trend in an industry, right? And yours is a movement in a backfield, but we do the same thing, which is why this is, you said it perfectly in your intro, this is open to anybody. So we did, we started the music company and wound up winning a Grammy for an album that I was a producer of. And we started the TV company, and since I saw you last, we won an Emmy for a show. Now we're producing another one. As long as you are open to learning, there is nothing you can't do.
Mm-hmm. You know what? So it's so interesting, because basically you're saying never put yourself in this pickle, right? Because they say, oh, you're this great football player, right? Nobody knew that this kid that's once stuttered, right, will become a speaker, right?
Right.
Nobody knew that I would take football and leave football aside and become New York Times bestselling author, right? It's just so many things that, and this is why I ask you about the reinventing of oneself, right? It's an interview I heard you speak about the travel business, right? On this crazy hit, right? And while all of these industries are taking these crazy hits, there's a lot of opportunity in that. Right? And reinventing yourself and creating something that the world needs, right? Because that's the problem that we're all trying to solve, right? How do we help people be better people?
And exercise. It's an X's and O's exercise, like you do, but that anybody listening can do. And this is what I did about how to reinvent yourself. And that is what I was talking about in that interview that you're referring to. You go to the left side of a piece of paper or a whiteboard. I'm sitting in my home office with my whiteboard behind me. You go to the whiteboard, and on the left, and I encourage everybody to do this, make a list of everything you have. What are your skills? What are your talents? What are your assets? What can you bring to the world? Resources you have, like I said, knowledge you have, relationships. I do an inventory. The same way you would inventory a team. You have an offensive line, how many deep you are in tight ends, receivers, defensive backs. List your assets. Yeah. And then look at it and say, what can I do with this? So I made a list of what skills I have, what relationships I have, right? What knowledge I might have. And then that's on the left. On the right, you analyze the world, because every night while you sleep, something amazing happened in the world, and it's what you want to be is the first person to figure out what changed while I was sleeping and what can I do about that? So constantly, I look at the right side of the board and I say, what does the world need now that it didn't need yesterday? And can my talents and my relationships, because you can't do it yourself, it's all about team. Can my talents and my relationships, can I map them into some new need in the world? So all of a sudden I got another idea of solving another problem the world wants solved, and I'm on my way off to my next business and my next dream. Yeah. Anybody can do that.
Anybody can do that. So 3 principles in your life that you truly believe brought you out. What you changed is what most people get stuck in, right? It's the environment, right? It's the people around you. It's in your company you keep. People get stuck there and they're afraid to step outside of that because it's uncomfortable. But what you're explaining is the uncomfortability is what makes you you. What are those three principles that kept you on track?
I think that is a great question. And by the way, for me as an entrepreneur, a lot of the things I believe in are written on the board behind me. But one of the things about being an entrepreneur, and I don't even like that word, Ray, because when people think of entrepreneur, they think of tech, right? Or websites or apps. That's not entrepreneurship. I would change the word and I would just call it self-determination. Wow. Envision your future, design your own future, and then go out and make it. Why are you waiting to see what the future is going to be? Why don't you just be the one designing it? So that's what entrepreneurship is, self-determination. And I just said, I don't love the life I have, so I'm going to build the one I want. And that vision process of driving towards something, of designing your own future. And that's what you and I have done this together on many stages in the inner cities. But that's what I do all the time, is that's what we're teaching the kids. Quit complaining about the world and go out and make it the way you want it to be. So I think that's the first thing, is that when I see a problem in the world, I don't complain about it and walk away. I stop and say, can I fix this one?
Absolutely.
Can I own this one? Maybe this is mine. Maybe it has my name all over it. Maybe there's a reason, no coincidences, that I'm standing in this moment very frustrated. You know, my first business, I missed a flight when I was broke and unemployed in an airport because it took an hour to check in. And I stood there and I was like, this is not okay. I missed the flight. I'm broke. I lost the money. It takes an hour to check in because you got to talk to a ticket agent. And I said, I'm going to fix this. And so part of designing your future is accountability and ownership, which most people don't take. And at that moment, you know, I was 20 something years old, broke, unemployed. I went home. And for those of you listening, you've checked yourself in at an airport at one of those kiosks that are pretty much in airports all over the world. That was my first invention. And I said, I'll just fix it, man. I'll make it better. And because I did that, guess what, Ray? My job became to fly to a different country every week to install those kiosks in airports. And my goal of visiting 50 countries as a broke kid from a single mom that everybody was making fun of me, I've been to, I think, about just over 100 countries now. The crazier part is I got paid to do it because I created that job. So you said three things. The first one is quit complaining and solve problems that everyone else is complaining about. The second one, I think, is recognizing that you are nothing without team.
Wow.
Nobody's ever won a game by themselves.
Nobody.
Even, you know, for an example, you know, a longtime, very close friend of mine is Evander Holyfield. Yep. So people look at your sport, Ray, and they say, well, of course, you know, there's a whole team on the field. But they see a guy like Evander in the ring against Mike Tyson alone. Evander will tell you there was about 15 people in that team that make that moment happen. Nobody wins alone. So I think that's the second principle, is early in my life, I recognized that I have got to be surrounded by the right people. And the hard part isn't saying yes to the right people. It's saying no to the wrong people. You got to move away from those people and leave them behind. They are holding you down and holding you back. If they're not contributing to your dream and helping you get there together, then they're just dead weight that's slowing you down. So that's the second one. Build a team and surround yourself. I always say surround yourself with people smarter than you and get out of the way. Man, you lead from the bottom. You lead by serving. I find amazing people. I bring them on board on the team, and then I say, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Because if I take care of them, they will make things happen. So I think that's probably the second one. I think the third one, and you said it perfectly, Ray, when you said how travel is the key to everything. It's that the dreams don't come true sitting on the couch. Nothing does. Nothing in your life happens when you're sitting on the couch talking about it, man. It's not what you dream about at night. It's what you do while you're awake. So get up and do something. And a lot of people are afraid to start because they don't know all the answers. But they'd be amazed if they met their heroes in the world and found out they had no idea what they were doing when they started. They just jumped, right? The saying I started to say before is, and it's further on my board, but being an entrepreneur is like jumping off and trying to build an airplane on the way down. Okay, man, you just got to jump, and whatever happens, it happens. But even when you fail, at least you're living. I was watching one of your games once, and somebody asked me something about how does Ray respond to losing? And I was like, I want you to think about something. On any given Sunday, literally half the entire NFL lost.
Yeah.
So if losing a game was going to stop you, you got no chance at success. You got to jump and you got to go with it.
Wrong business. Wrong business if you're not okay with losing, right?
Yes.
I have learned more in losses than I did in wins, right? It's what attracts us, right? Because everything that you're speaking about, Jeff, I'm doing something on the show right now called championship mentality, right? And you coming from a mother with 4 kids, can't figure it out. See, a lot of people only look at where you are.
Right, exactly.
Which is where you came from, right? So when somebody says, oh, Jeff Hoffman, the billionaire, it's like, wow, that's impossible. But what you just told me is it's not impossible. You can reinvent yourself. Go ahead, please.
Let me just share something. You and I have talked about this before. The problem is the way people look at their big dream. And whatever big dream you have in life, I'm going to be a Hall of Fame football player someday when you're still in high school, or whatever it is, in college, whatever your dream is, anybody listening in life, doesn't matter whether it is, doesn't have to be sports, money, whatever your dream is. When you are at the bottom of a big dream at the start, it looks like a mountain that's too tall. You look up and you say, I'll never get to where Ray is or where Jeff is because that's the top of a mountain. And you start making excuses, man. The mountain's too tall. It's too steep. I don't have the right shoes. It's hot out. The rocks are sharp. You start preparing to lose. So here's what I did when I was a kid, when I had a big dream. I plan my entire goal. I plan all my goals backwards. Project yourself at the top of a mountain. I'll give you just a really quick one day and then I'll give you that example. I told my sister and her friends were all excited one Saturday morning, Ray, because they went to an Elton John concert. And I was like, well, did you meet him? And they're like, no, we were in the nosebleed seats. I said, what are you so excited about? They said, because we were in the building with Elton John live. And I said, because you know me well, I have this little problem with sarcasm that apparently there's no medical cure for. And I said, one day when Elton John and I are friends, I'll tell him you like his music. And they all started laughing. And I was like, wait, why is that so funny? And my sister's like, in a million lifetimes, you ain't never going to be friends with Elton John. You're a poor kid in the desert, right, of a single mom. How would I ever be friends with Elton John? So that's the dream. The mountain is too big to climb when you're standing at the bottom. So what I did, and what I always do, is I project my life backwards. I said, okay, put yourself at the top of the mountain. Elton John and I are friends. And I grabbed a pen and a paper, Ray, said, what would have to happen the day before that? Elton would have to like me. The day before that, we'd have to hang out so he could like me. The day before that, I'd have to be introduced to him. The day before that, someone would have to introduce me. When I finished working backwards, then I'd have to know somebody that knows him. Then I'd have to know somebody in the music business that would take my call. And then I said, why would anyone in the music business take my call? I wrote the plan from the top of the mountain back to where I was today. And I said, you know what? It might be a 1 in a million chance, but it ain't zero. There's actually a path from me to where I want to go. So project yourself at the top of your mountain and work backwards, and you will find out that there's nowhere you can't go.
See, so this is why we get it, right? This is why we connect. That's the only way, right? It was starting backwards. Every goal I had was the backwards goal, right? It was not, oh, how do I win a Super Bowl? No. It was how do I build a better me? How do I build a better team? How do I get the team to understand what we're trying to accomplish, right? All of those tangible.
Those are all those steps.
All of those steps, right? And so it's really interesting because one of the things that I wanted to really get your input on is that so many people get down that road, right? A lot of them will take that step, right? They'll jump. But a lot of them stop in the middle. A lot of people start things. And the biggest problem that we have probably in our world is we don't finish what we start. Right? Right? If your life changes and your direction change in life after failing, how do you rebound, Jeff? How do we get back on track? How do we deal with a pandemic? How do we deal with lost jobs? How do we deal with all of these frustrating things that's going on in our world? How do we make it out, Jeff?
So that you were absolutely right. Things get a little tough. You know, one of the other things that's written behind me is that everybody wants to be successful just till they find out what it takes, right? They want your, but they don't want to do your workout, buddy. They don't want your work ethic. I get that too, because people will say, man, you got such a lucky life right now. And I'm like, lucky? Because you didn't see the trail of blood, sweat, and tears that got me from where I was to here. People don't want to do what it takes to succeed. They just want to be successful. And it doesn't work that way. So, you know, your question about what do we do in those times? I'll tell you what I do is that, and you've been through this very much. Again, that's why you and I connect so well, is that I think about the alternatives. I will give you a really quick example. I wanted to go to college, had no money. As you know, I had this crazy educational goal to go to this really good school. And I actually wanted to go to Yale. And when I told my teachers, they laughed at me. Kids like you don't go to places like that, not from here. And I was like, okay, well, you're the teacher. You're supposed to encourage me. And they said, we don't want you to waste your time. And I was like, wow, no one is helping push me towards my Super Bowl. I wanted to go there. When I got there, I got kicked out because I didn't have any money. And when I got there, they're like, we appreciate that you worked hard enough to get in, but you can't go to class because you're poor. You didn't pay the bill. You can't go. And I went and sat on the steps, and I'm going to be honest, man, I cried. Mm-hmm. And you know what happened? The rich kids walked by me and laughed at me. And it was kind of like, look at the poor kid crying outside. And that actually helped me because the visual, I was like, you know, you're just pouring gasoline on a fire right now. Yeah. Because I'm getting more lit, the more people that are trying to take this away from me. And so I sat there and I thought through the alternative. I called everybody, my parents too. Everyone's like, just quit and go home. And I was like, if I quit and go home, what does my life look like? Right? If I start this early in life as a quitter. And I thought about it. So the same thing now, when I had business ideas, and some of them failed. And then some of them, you know, even after Priceline, we did a company called ubid.com, which we took public and became a multi-billion-dollar company. But I had failures in there, right? People don't remember those, but you and I sure do. Yeah. And in those failure moments, I would stand up, because when I first quit my one corporate job that I hated, my boss laughed at me, said, oh, you're going to be an entrepreneur because you think you're so smart? I said, no, sir. I just have a different life plan and I want to go build my own path. And he said, why? Because you're smarter than everyone? I said, no, sir. And he laughed. So why is this funny? He said, because when you fail, you'll come crawling back to me and beg me for a job, and that's going to be fun. So you know what happens when things aren't going my way, when it's tough and you got to climb out of defeat? I close my eyes and I remember sitting in his office, and I remember the way my blood boiled when he said, I can't wait for you to come crawling back in here begging me. And so what you do in the bad times is look at the alternative and say, where I am now, at least out there fighting and giving myself a chance, is a lot better than the alternative. That's what makes you get after failure, because you know what happens if you stop trying. And that kept driving me every time I failed.
There's no name I don't remember that told me that same thing. You won't make it. You can't figure it out. I never forget in junior high school, after I used to finish my work, I used to always write my autograph, right? And I was writing my autograph. we were broke and we didn't have nothing. And I'm like, one day I'm gonna figure this out, and this is gonna be worth something. So one of my teachers come up at the end of class and she was like, I'm gonna hold you in detention. You're not doing your work. I said, my work is done. I was like, she said, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm signing my autograph. She says, why? I said, because one day it will be it will be an autograph you're gonna want to have. And she was like, really? And I said, yes. And I mean, rightfully so. I ended up seeing that person later, and it became a real comical thing that Yeah.
What'd she say? What'd she say later?
Guess what she said? Can I have your autograph?
Oh my gosh. So Ray, you know what's funny about that story? I love that story. Behind me on the wall, it says upgrade your haters to VIP.
Absolutely.
And you know why I put that? Because kids, you know, I speak to kids all over the world. Yeah. And you and I have done that together. And I was telling the story of when I said I was going to start a music company, kind of like your eyes, and like, you don't know what you're doing, it'll never work. And then all those people later, this was back during the pop days, but we were doing, we were on a Britney Spears, NSYNC, Elton John. We were doing these tours, Backstreet and stuff. And I remember these people came and said, hey man, can we get tickets to tonight's show? And I was like, really? To the show that will never exist, created by the company that's a studio that was started by the dreamer who just needs to go get a job. Do you want tickets to that show? And they're like, we didn't say that. And I was like, yeah, you did. No one remembers that they didn't believe in you. And so all these kids were like, I hope you didn't give them tickets. That would be like a kid saying to you, I hope you didn't give that teacher an autograph. Yeah. I said, wait, whoa, time out. Not only did I give them tickets, but I upgraded them to VIP and handed them backstage. And the kids were like, why would you do that? So I wrote that because all the kids were tweeting, upgrade your haters to VIP. I said, I gave them all VIP passes. And they said, why? I said, you know what's the best revenge you ever get? I don't like the word revenge. Success is the only revenge you can ever get. The best revenge you can get is giving them tickets to your game, Ray. Yes. Right? I put them backstage so their friends are like, how'd you get backstage? And they're like, Jeff upgraded us to VIP. And like, really? Isn't that the guy you used to make fun of? That's how you win. Just give them the autograph, give them tickets to your game. Never lower yourself to the other guy's level. Always rise above.
Listen, I got to ask you this because you just said something. I have to ask this, right? What's the difference? Why do most people look for a job instead of a business?
So it's fear. I talk to people. It's fear, safety and comfort. You know, it's safe on the couch in your house. The world is scary. The world is full of unknowns and uncertainties. Leading, you know this from being a leader your whole life. Yeah. Most people don't want to be a leader. They in the huddle. It's like, Ray, what do we do on this play? And you know, I actually had a quick moment. I was on a bus at all places Disney World with like, I don't know, 70, 80 people, and a truck crashed in front of us. And I don't remember moving, but all of a sudden I was standing between the crash and the bus, and I was shouting orders. I told the bus driver, call 911, get an ambulance. It looks bad. And then people were looking out the window. I said, get your kids away from the window and sit back down now so the bus can move. And then another bus came, and I said, go around us and don't stop. No one needs to see this. And the bus driver said, excuse me, sir. I said, what? And he said, I said, no. He said, are you a firefighter? I said, no. He said, are you a police officer? I said, no. And he said, then what are you doing? And I said, just go, please. And he drove off, and I turned around and I said, wait, there's 100 people here. Why am I the one standing here shouting orders? It's because some people are comfortable taking the chance, stepping in front. Most people are afraid. And guess what happens, Ray? You call the play and it fails. I can just say, man, Ray, you called the wrong play. Instead of owning the fact that you called the right play, but I didn't hustle. I remember a play that Ed Reed gave up a big third down and he ran straight to you because he was upset that he let you down, not blaming you. That's the difference between Hall of Fame and everybody else, is owning your responsibility. So most people are literally afraid. Yeah. And they go get a job because then I don't have to try. In fact, then I got an excuse. I thought you were going to travel the world. Yeah, well, I got this job, right? Then they have an excuse for not trying. And you know, in the U.S., you've seen that study probably. There's a U.S. study, and it was 86% of all U.S. people that have a job are not really happy with it or fulfilled, right? But they're just afraid to try. And that's why I'm here with you today. If we can push a few people over the edge a little bit to go out and live and take a chance, then we've done our job.
And this is why, look, I'm gonna wind up with this one because you just said something that I think we have to address this issue, right? And this is, I think, what makes me and you so compatible when we really talk to each other every time, Jeff. Seriously, every time I connect with you, it's always something different, right? But listen to this, right? While the number of millionaires and ultra rich grew in 2020, equality increased, right? The report found that approximately 2.9 billion individuals, or 55% of all adults globally, had net worths below $10,000, right? So that's as of 2020.
Yep.
So the reason why, and a lot of people say, why do you do shows like that? Because your knowledge, your success is not because of where you are now. It's because of what you put down so you can, right? That's what I'm trying to, that's what we're trying to get to, Jeff. Like, how do you live, wake up every day with a championship mentality? How do you wake up every day and say, you know what? I don't have the right way to plan A, but I'm gonna figure out alternate routes to plan A. Because some of us go to plan B, C, D, and E too fast, right? We have to slow down.
Totally agree with you. People give up too soon instead of pushing through. And that's why it's so important to have a tribe, man, to be surrounded by the kind of people that you can count on. You know, sometimes you and I just reach out to each other to say hello, but there's an energy burst that comes with that, Ray. When I just connect with you, and even if we're not talking about anything important. And so having people in your life that give you that boost when you're on the way down is important, because people quit too soon. And, you know, that statistic you read is the reason why today, one of the things I do is I'm the chairman of the Global Entrepreneurship Network. That's that colorful GEN logo behind me. We are on the ground in 190 countries. I'm headed back off to Africa again soon. The US is one of those countries. We're on the ground in 190 countries with one simple mission: to teach people how to help themselves.
Wow.
Right? We teach people how to say, I don't like the life I have, but fix it. You know this story that I took a year off and I did this year of yes, where I was going to go around the world and just help people try to improve their lives. And the second call I got was a young man in West Africa, a 19-year-old kid named Mustafa. He wrote me a letter. Dear Mr. Hoffman, I know you won't read this. And if you do, I know you won't respond. And I was like, oh, it's on now. Right? You don't know me like that. And I went to West Africa because I was doing a year of yes, of helping people. And I said, what's the deal? He said, things are rough in the villages. We live in homes made of mud, no electricity, no water. And he said, but I got ideas. And if I could figure out how to turn my ideas into something, I could create homes and jobs for all 20 families in my village. I've been mentoring him on how to. Today, Ray, he has 350 employees in 7 West African countries, and he builds them all houses to live in with running water and electricity. If we teach people how to take their ideas and turn them into reality, people will be able to help themselves. And that's the ripple effect. I helped one guy, he helped 350. That's exactly why you do a show like this, so we can push people to take that step.
Yeah, listen, I gotta share this because it's so good based off your story. So this homeless guy in Baltimore, I do it all the time, right? And I stop at this light and he runs up and he never picks his head up. So he's looking down and he finally picks his head back up and he's like, no way, whatever. Right? And I'm like, yes way, right? So I take this $100 bill, right? And I give him this $100 bill. And I said, look at me. I said, no, look at me. You cannot use this on no drugs, no alcohol, or nothing that you can abuse yourself with. Is that the promise we're making? He looked at me and said, I promise you, this same guy took that $100, started a business, got married, and is now a pastor of a church in Baltimore.
Oh my gosh. That is the ripple effect, my man. That's what it's all about.
That's it. That's it, man. And that's why I'm telling you, like, I've been just watching a lot of your videos and stuff. And so, because it's really interesting on how so many people are being affected in so many of these industries, but what we're really losing value in is our self-image.
Yes.
Right? Who we are. Right? We are worthy of accomplishing anything you want to accomplish. The problem is we keep comparing ourselves to everybody else.
Yep. The downside of social media, everyone's pretending to have the perfect life that you're not. And people are spending too much time wishing they were someone else. And I always tell them, why don't you put that energy into making your life the one you want, not wishing you had someone else's. You are right on. People need to stop staring at everybody else's life on Instagram and look at their own and say, how do I make things better for me and the people around me?
And Jeff, this is what, and I'm gonna let you go. This is what's interesting. It's not money. You just told me that, right? If it was money, then you never make a decision to go out and ask people how to cut their grass or how to help your mom. You never, if it's money, right? Money sends you in opposite directions of that, right? And so it's interesting because one of the crises, the clothing industry is so huge, right? And that's why I got my clothing line coming out soon. Yep. Because why? Because I want my clothing line not to be about the identity. I want it to be about the integrity of what you're putting on, right? People go, they hurt somebody for wearing Jordans or do something. Oh, I got to have on this, dollar suit, or I got to have this type of clothing on. And the only reason you feel empowered is about what you have on. But what happens when you're unclothed? Mm-hmm. Right? Who are you in isolation? And that's why the reinventing of yourself, right? How do you manage life in low points, right? You touched the billionaire status years ago. What are you most proud about in your life?
Okay, that's a great question, but I got to show you something. When you said it's not about money, in red behind me, it says one of my most important things, don't chase excellence. Everybody's out there trying to get rich. You need to try to get excellent. Quit chasing money, because those people are being distracted from the only thing that's ever going to get you paid, which is to be excellent. So that's why I have don't chase money, chase excellence, man. I was heads down like you, focused on being excellent at what I did, and the money just showed up. Quit chasing it all the time. The other one, the one that drives my life is above that, where it says there is no they.
There's no they.
They don't feed those kids. They don't help that homeless man. They don't save those women from abuse. They don't exist. It's you. There is no they. You ask me what I'm most proud of. I would say the thing that I am most proud of in my life, it turns out that it's not any of our business accomplishments. Mm-hmm. It's not the IPOs. It's not the millions we made, or even the Grammy or the Emmy or any of that stuff. My biggest accomplishment is, and you just gave an example of that homeless man, is when there are people who don't believe in themselves, and there's plenty of stories, and I've made the time. By the way, it's a lot easier to stroke a check, right? Wire somebody some money than it is for you and I to do what we did when we were touring before, when you and I were traveling to different cities and spending days in a community. That's a lot more of us that we're giving than just giving people money. I was in the east side of Cleveland visiting the worst schools. And I was asking kids to tell me what their dream is. And there was a little girl there that, like the guy you said, she wouldn't even make eye contact in the world. And I said, tell me about you. She said, well, my father was killed trying to kill someone else, so he got what he deserved. And I just like, wow, I felt that in my heart. I said, what about your mom? She said, my mom wakes up every day and tells me I'm completely worthless and she wishes I was never born. And wow. I just froze. And that little girl actually grabbed my hand, which was surprising me. And I looked at her teachers and they're like, we're just as surprised. And she said, Mr. Hoffman, would you mentor me? And I said, of course I would, but what's the plan? She said, I want to do so well in my life that one day my mother is forced to look up and say, wow, I'm proud of you. She said, that's all the day that I'm living for, and I will help you. I said, I will help you. Today, she is a 4.0 pre-med student. We put her in college. Granted, we paid for it. She's 4.0. You'd never recognize her. All the kids in school say she's the one that helps everybody, even though she came from nowhere, and she wants to be a pediatric surgeon. Those are the moments I'm most proud of. When you and I spend our time on somebody else, and they turn into something you look at, and my heart just swells every time I talk to this girl. That is a legacy that's way more important to me than the price of our stock for some company that I started.
My friend, I knew, you know what? I'm not going to give you no more excuses of staying away from me because I need this energy. So, so we just need to figure out a weekly call. So,
all right, I'm in.
Because people always ask, like, you give so much energy. Where did you get it from? And I tell people, I have really awesome friends, like people that I call brother, man. So listen,
it's like filling a tank.
Hey, brother, I appreciate you so much, Jeff.
All right, thanks for having me, Ray.
It's been absolutely amazing, and we'll catch up soon, okay?
All right, thank you. Love you, man.
All right, my friend. Thank you, buddy. Oh, man, you know what? Checking in. How do you check in, after you experience something like that? It's like the whole thing about life is, how do you reinvent yourself? And I think just diving into championship mentality, the moment I get there, wow. But how do you reinvent yourself? You hear these stories, right? Richard Branson dropped out of high school. And I'm not telling people to drop out of high school, right? I'm telling you, finish school, do what you got to do. But when you listen to Mr. Hoffman and where he came from, his imagination, his perspective, his foundation, and his willingness to never settle, to take a dive, to jump head first at any opportunity in life, and be okay with failing. Because if you are, there's a lot of success once you figure out no pain lasts always. It gets no better. It gets no better. And we got to jump into the championship mentality. I mean, just coming from Jeff Hoffman, my goodness, the knowledge that was shared. Coach, I got to get you in here. This week, we got to jump into really understanding, Coach. And me and you've been talking about this, right? What does it mean to reinvent yourself, right? What are you doing to reinvent yourself? What's up, Coach? You look good and tan, baby. What's going on?
Hey, man, we spent a lot of time out there in that sun in Aruba. It was great, and it's good to be back. But I tell you, man, what an awesome interview that was, because it makes so much sense, man. I like to ponder the thought that a lot of people, when we start to think about reinventing ourselves, we like to think about what we're going to get. And I believe one of the most important things is what our mentor said is what you becoming during the process. It's one thing to have a job or have anything in life. And the question is not what are you getting, but what are you becoming? And that's the point, Ray, as we reinvent ourselves. I think about when we trained, man, of course we wanted to get in better shape. Of course we wanted to get stronger. We was reinventing our bodies.
Yeah.
But what was more important, man, was what we was becoming during that process.
Yes.
Becoming better men, becoming better fathers, becoming better mentors. So as our team out there, as they're getting themselves together and they think about, wow, I have to reinvent myself. I have to think about what problems I need to solve. In mind, man, it's not always based on money. It's based on what you're becoming as a person. And a lot of times that don't come with $1 billion.
Yeah, it does not, T. And Coach, this is where this is really crucial, right? Because what you have to understand, the one thing you have to do is you have to stop complaining. Stop complaining. Never quit. And instead, reinvent yourself. And this is what we done. This is what we done. We changed our habits. Yeah. Bro, think about that. Everything that was slowing us down, right? To transition to being whatever I was going to be and whatever you was going to be. We changed our habits. Bro, you got to remember. You remember what we done with the tongue. You remember what we done with clubbing. You remember what we done with drinking and all. Bro, we switched out totally. See, and listen, this is for someone who doesn't understand this, right? I want you to grasp this. Every day you reinvent yourself. You are always in motion. Listen to me. You're always moving. That's why we became so efficient. because we were always moving.
Mm-hmm.
But you decide now, moving forward or backwards. Remember, we used to always say, man, it's never the workouts that you do that you remember. It's the ones that you don't do that you remember, right? So either you're going forward or you're going backwards. But when you decide to reinvent yourself, the first thing you must stop doing is you got to stop worrying. You got to stop complaining. And you cannot, I'm just going to quit and I'm going to start something else. Me and Jeff said something that was really interesting. A lot of people in life start a lot of things, T, but there's only a small percentage of people that actually finish them.
And it's so important that you finish them, man. And I like what he talked about when it comes to solving a problem. I'm trying to make this as practical and simple as it could be.
Yeah.
I mean, those that solve the problems get the rewards. Think about everything in life. This Zoom call solves a problem. The show solves a problem. Yeah. The helmets that y'all used to wear on the field solve a problem. Yeah. This phone solve a problem. This pen solve a problem. Cup solve a problem. A fork solves a problem.
Yeah.
The question is, what problem are you solving? And if you're not solving a problem, that's where the issue is going to come in. That's why I always tell people, we always talk about there's a leader within us. There's also a business within you. Yeah. There's something that you can solve, that there's some problem that you was born to solve.
Yes.
For me, it's health, wellness, obesity, health of the mind, body, spirit. That's a big problem in this world. Yeah. That's my assignment. Yeah. So instead of searching for money as you reinvent yourself, start to search for what problems can I solve? Like we always say, man, it's like you can become more than what you are.
My goodness.
Because you can make yourself get more time.
We can't get more time.
But you can make yourself more valuable. And that's where we are at this point with championship mentality. Yeah. And it's reinventing ourselves. Now, the word reinvent, means that you have to go back. But again, I always go back to the beginning, what God said about us. You're a king, you got dominion. Yeah. We were placed here to put rule over this earth and kingdom over this earth. So it's something within you. Give your gift. Yeah. Give your gift to the world, man, and the world will come look for you.
Yeah, it's not about finding yourself. It's about creating yourself, right? That's what we done. We created a lifestyle. We created a mentality. We created a direction, and we recreated our purpose, right? That's why we love going to what they call work, because we work for ourselves, right? We love what we do because every day we get up and our motto is simple. Change one life a day. One life a day, right? And if more are affected, then God bless us. But that one life a day, the reinvention of oneself, you said something key. When you talk about you got to go back. You got to start there. You got to throw away all the things that's not working. And sadly enough, you got to get rid of a lot of company that's not working, right? And I think to just round this up, because this is so good. This is why I remember the day we had the conversation of what were we trying to do and how were we trying to change. Remember sitting in that basement. And we both looked at each other. And then people have heard this story many times. And I said, man, these earrings just don't look right, man. And not with where we trying to go. They just don't look right. We took them out immediately. Coach, we took them out immediately. Our tongues changed immediately. Our vision for where we wanted to go and what we wanted to do changed immediately. So I'm telling you today, someone has an opportunity to stay stuck in quicksand or figure out a way out. And the only way to figure out a way out is getting rid of all the excess baggage. No more baggage, no more complaining, right? Let's just figure it out and let's do this for yourself. This week, I think it's really simple, T, and you said it. We have to figure out what the problem is. What is your greatest ability as a human being when it comes to problem solving? One of mine is just being able to inspire people to find their best selves. Now, listen to what I said. I didn't say change them. I said inspire them to be their best selves. That's what we're trying to go with.
And there's value in that. And that's what makes you valuable, man. So our team out there, again, as you reinvent yourself, man, think about that gift that you have. Think about that problem that you can solve that's easy for you to solve, that may be difficult for other people. And remember, along this process, it takes time.
Yes.
You may be on this journey and you may not see no results for months. You may have been following this show and starting to implement some principles and you haven't seen anything yet. I'm here to tell you, don't get discouraged. Like, God show you things in little bits and pieces. Just keep the process going. And remember, like you said, you got to address those habits.
Yeah.
Boy, we changed a lot of habits. There's still more habits that we have to change, but you have to deal with those habits because we don't decide our future. We decide our habits, and our habits decide our future. And so it's so important, man, as you go there, picture yourself as who God said you are and reinvent yourself. Because if the old you isn't working,
oh boy,
everything that you've got now is everything you attracted and everything you are.
Yeah.
But the good news is that that's not the end of it. If you want more, then we simply have to become more. And that's what this is about.
Hey, Coach, it gets better every week because there's someone that takes one or more of these principles and actually change their lives, brother. I appreciate you, man. God bless you. Thank you again for help changing our direction and our path. Coach, it gets no better. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for jumping on Championship Mentality. We'll be talking soon.
See you next week.
All right, brother. Rounding up, man. You know, it's so interesting. And I won't be long here because I want to make sure I'm clear about the clear takeaways, right? Become a problem solver and you will never, ever work again a day in your life. Wow. The moment you become a problem solver. Number two, I want you to understand this. Your destiny outweighs your history. A lot of us stay stuck and broken because of the things that's happened in our lives or in our past. But I'm telling you, your destiny awaits the moment you wake up and say, I'm done. It's over. And when you're talking about reinventing yourselves, this week, I want you to ask yourself this question. What weighs you down? What are you built to do? And what problems are you here on this earth while we have time? Coach said something. Time is one thing we can't buy. You can't trade it. You can't buy it. You can't get it back. The only thing you can do with it is use it. This week, take this opportunity to use this week to figure out why you're here. Jeff Hoffman said something. He said, all of the people that said I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that and I couldn't do this, and he did everything that everybody said he couldn't do. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say what I couldn't do. But somehow, when you continue to reinvent yourself, you find different ways, not to just change your life, but to change the life of others who's paying attention to you. God bless you. Thank you for joining. It's always just a blessing every time that we can get on these shows and we can have this type of conversation with impactful people like Jeff Hoffman, who's been so successful in so many things. But one thing that I will always take away from him, he's a problem solver. He figures out how to solve problems. And that's the greatest takeaway of life, right? What problems in your life that you need to solve. I read some of my Bible this morning. I'll leave you with this. And it was so unique. It said, it's amazing that you try to tell somebody to take the speck out of their eye. but you never take the board out of yours. So the moment that you clean up your mess, then you can help somebody else that's dealing with their mess. God bless you. Thank you for joining. I'll see you next week.